Hello, hello, Pokemon fans. Welcome to the Victory Road side stream broadcast featuring matches from the Latin American International Championships in Sao Paulo, Brazil. My name is Cedric, and I'm joined by my co-caster Hayden and the rest of the Victory Road team to share some of the top Pokemon VGC matches at LAIC to complement what we have also going on the main stream. So, yeah, really excited to be streaming today. How are you, Hayden?
Oh, I'm just delighted to be here. So much wonderful VGC history being recorded with all of these side streams. I think Ben and Matt got us off to a great start with a ton of really exciting matches that I hope folks had a chance to catch. And I'm really excited to bring us home for the latter half of day one.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, we're starting round 5 now. We have some excellent trainers queued up for you. We, of course, have the well-known Àlex Gómez, a Spanish player, versus Frederik Nielsen, a newer player, but has definitely had his fair share of success from 2023 onwards. So yeah, going to be an incredible match. It's kind of been the trend on this stream today. I believe we've had at least one regional champion in every stream match the previous casters were mentioning. So yeah, continuing on that trend. I'm not entirely sure if Frederik has one, but Àlex definitely has regional championships in spades, not to comment on his additional national, international, and worlds finishes.
Yeah, Àlex has one of the most impressive resumes I've seen in Pokemon. Just so many different finishes. So really fun to get to see Àlex in fighting form for this big tournament. This is a tier of tournament that Àlex has won before versus a player who's really had a lot of interesting breakouts in the last couple of years. I think they both have pretty interesting teams, and I'm really excited to get a chance to talk through that.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Looking here, we've got...
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. Looking through here, we've got Frederik's team on the left. That's going to be Incineroar, Annihilate, Dusclops, Maushold, Sinistcha, and Ursaluna. So really interesting Dusclops there. Unfortunately, with an ability that's not so helpful with open team sheets, but with the Eviolite and the ability to set Trick Room, giving a lot of really interesting options there. And 3 Ghost types and 2 normal types on Frederik's side of the field. Facing down Àlex, with a much more, I think, standard team with that Ursaluna, Blood Moon, Incineroar, Dragonite, Goldengo. Lots of standard picks.
Yeah, exactly. The Frisk you mentioned on the Dusclops, not going to come in handy here where all the abilities are pretty standard and straightforward on Alex's side, but Frederik, I believe, used Zoroark earlier in the season, and that is one of the rare use cases where Frisk can actually reveal that the Zoroark is on the field, but, maybe trying to prepare for his own stuff there, or maybe just trying to capture speed priorities, not entirely sure. But yeah, you did mention a really interesting team on Frederik's side. Lots of consistent typing, 3 ghost types, 2 normal types. But yeah, just a very setup-oriented team. We have, of course, the Annihilate is the centerpiece of the team, going for the bulk up, protected by then Maushold going for follow me's, beat ups to set up the Rage Fist to the, I believe, 4 stacks of that. And then you also have the Dusclops and Ursaluna Trick Room mode. The Nielsens are kind of known for a faster-paced Tailwind Ursaluna, so to see, this looks at first glance to just be a Trick Room Ursaluna, but you might be surprised by the speed tiers. We'll definitely have to see. But yeah, just a really supportive core for that Annihilate on Frederik's side.
Yeah, so a lot of really interesting support that works both for supporting that Annihilate and also for supporting the Trick Room Ursaluna mode, which it looks like is being threatened from Nielsen. So I think interesting to have that flexibility to adjust between games. You really have to be prepared for either the Annihilate or the Ursaluna, providing a lot of support as well along that side of the team. But Àlex has a ton of tools to be able to deal with a lot of these things. A ton of ways to burn turns in Trick Room with the double fake out core, and an Ursaluna of his own with that Assault Vest, so maybe able to take some attacks from the Life Orb Terra Normal Ursaluna on Nielsen's side of the field.
Yeah, absolutely. The item difference is definitely going to matter a whole lot here. Most likely trying to live the Life Orb, Terra Normal, Blood Moon, but, hard to say. I do want to comment on the Rillaboom not being Assault Vest on this team. Could be pretty critical. With the Friend Guard on the Annihilate, getting lots of damage quickly onto that Pokemon can be kind of challenging, but even after the bulk up, a Miracle Seed Woodhammer is going to do a whole lot of damage, especially given that the Annihilate is not the common Fire Terra. It is the Water Terra, so if you can force the Terra early, potentially with the Volcarona going for a Terra Fairy Blast or Shadow Ball from Goldengo, that Rillaboom's Grassy Glides or Woodhammers boosted by the Miracle Seed could be a way to clean up that Annihilate and prevent it from going out of control.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really important factor for this match. With that said, if you're not able to get the terrestrialization and then a bunch of pressure all at once, Nielsen has just so many ways to mitigate damage on the Annihilate and also to heal it back up with the Life Dew and the Hospitality on that Sinistra.
Yeah, the Sinistra, very cool for the Annihilate, just being able to switch in and heal up any damage. You have double follow me on this team, so really if you want the Annihilate or the Trick Room to get set up, it's going to be fairly trivial if Frederick is willing to sacrifice a Pokemon to do that. It's just the question is if that is actually valuable. One thing we haven't commented on is the Incineroar on Alex's side running Taunt. I think that has the potential to be pretty influential if the Trick Room option is led. However, if the Annihilate Mousehold is led, that's actually a really negative lead for Àlex. The Intimidate ability activating the Defiant on the Annihilate and giving it a +1 boost to its attack stat would really set that Annihilate off to the races already. So going to be one of the decisions that Àlex is considering in this game one is whether he expects the Mousehold Annihilate or the Trick Room mode to be led more aggressively from Frederick.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really curious what tools you might be thinking Àlex has in mind for handling the Annihilate and Mousehold specifically. You could try to set up in the face of the Annihilate and Mousehold, but that's really dangerous. And then there's even the haze from the Dusclops to slow things down. I'm not seeing a lot of instantaneous damage from Alex's side of the field other than the Goldengo and the Ursaluna.
Yeah, I think the Goldengo definitely could be a core component where it's one of the few things that can get around. It's actually the only thing on Alex's team that has spread type damage and can get around the follow me and rage powders. Well, the Rillaboom can get around the rage powder, but you understand with the Make It Rain, much stronger attack after you set up the Nasty Plot 2/2 can probably not one at KO the Annihilate if Friend Guard is on the field, but it definitely pressures a Terastallization, which, like we mentioned, might be one thing that Àlex is trying to force so that the Rillaboom can later clean it up with a Grassy Glide. So one potential game plan we could see from Àlex is to go aggressive with the Goldengo early on, try and chip down or force Terras defensively from Frederick, and then from there sweep with the Rillaboom later on. And I do think that Goldengo also fares relatively well into the Trick Room mode if you can pressure the Ursaluna with Fake Out, as well as the Incineroar with Fake Out throughout the game. Your Goldengo can really get set up and potentially do a lot of damage at one time after setting up those multiple turns of Nasty Plots.
Yeah, I think both sides really have like a couple of key Pokemon that they really want to just protect, set up, be able to have threatening a lot of damage. There's the Annihilate and the Ursaluna on Nielsen's side, and that Goldengo on Alex's side. A little bit less support on Alex's side of the field, other than, as you mentioned, that Fake Out. So it'll be interesting to see if there's maybe some snags with wanting to rely on Fake Out to create pressure for Goldengo to do things, but then facing down a team full of 3 Ghost types plus a Terra Ghost option on the Mousehold.
Yeah, absolutely. Really good point. If you do want to go for those Fake Outs, which Àlex does have 2 of, like you mentioned, the double Ghost type is going to be really, you're not going to be getting full value if what Frederick actually brings is 3 Ghost types and 1 Pokemon susceptible to Fake Out. And I guess if that's the Mousehold, it can go for a Terra Ghost of its own to dodge the Fake Out. So yeah, that wouldn't be especially valuable for him. But yeah, going to be looking at, in case that does happen, the additional options he has on the Pokemon he's bringing Fake Out with. Like, as we mentioned, the Rillaboom, I really do expect the Rillaboom almost has to come given the Water Terra on the Annihilate. Even though the Fake Out isn't as valuable, it's going to be valuable against all the modes. It can ignore the Rage Powder on the Sinistra to hit the Ursaluna potentially later in the game, and also chip down. If you chip down the Mousehold early, you can Grassy Glide and get rid of that Focus Sash. So yeah, the Rillaboom, although Fake Out might not end up being effective, it definitely could also in turn stall Trick Room turns against that Ursaluna. The Grass type coverage can be really critical in this match, but I'm wondering, I know you highlighted Ursaluna earlier in the game on Alex's side. I think, yeah, it's one of those Pokemon where it is actually quite good against Annihilate in the fact that although you're weak to Drain Punch, it takes a couple turns of bulk ups to actually get to that 2 at KO range where you're actually doing a lot of damage to the Ursaluna. So you could see that as a fairly safe option early on for Alex's side, is leading that Ursaluna saying, you know what, no matter what you lead, I'm going to get a lot of damage off here. Even if it's not a 1 at KO necessarily, it might prime an easier sweep later for my Goldengo, Rillaboom, or the rest of my Pokemon.
Yeah, absolutely. I think just also because of Mind's Eye having neutral damage into every single Pokemon on Nielsen's side of the field with or without Terastallization is a really nice way to just have some sort of indiscriminate damage to be able to toss out. And the Vacuum Wave option on the Ursaluna I think is interesting if you're ever in a situation where you need to just get rid of the Sash on the Mousehold. And because it's going to take Annihilate some time to be able to get to the point where it can threaten Ursaluna, and no matter how many Rage Fist boosts it has, Ursaluna's not going to have to worry about that. I think it's a really interesting option for Àlex, either in the back or as a lead, to be able to just toss out a lot of pressure if for some reason the Golden Go plan doesn't work quite as well.
Yeah, I wonder if the Goldengo doesn't work, if you could try the Volcarona. I'm not
Hmm.
entirely sold on it. There is, you do have super effective and you can Quiver Dance to kind of offset some of the damage that the Ursaluna is doing. But outside of that, it might be a little tricky. I do feel like Goldengo is going to be the go-to for sure. But maybe if the Goldengo is a little bit too punished in the early game or in one of the earlier games, we might see the Volcarona as kind of a mix-up option to where if you actually force a terrestrialization from one of the other Pokemon, Terra Fairy, Terra Blast after a Quiver Dance should do a lot of damage to the Annihilate. It's really probably going to be a bit more of a mix-up Pokemon in this matchup, though. What do you think about Volcarona and potentially the Dragonite? We haven't talked too much about Hayden.
Yeah. So I think one of the really interesting factors with the Volcarona is also that because the Annihilate doesn't have a fire terrestrialization or anything, it could totally be burned by the flame body. And so if you have Ursaluna, Blood Moon, and it's drawing in Drain Punches, and then you like pivot in the Volcarona, there's some options that are far from guarantees and far from things you plan a game around, but still some interesting threats to be able to build off of. So I think there's some interesting factors from Volcarona there. The main snag is just that we don't have, or Àlex does not have spread moves on the Volcarona at all. There's no Heat Wave option. And so in order for it to really do damage to the key players, it has to first take out the Sinistcha and the Mousehold. And that might just be a lot of extra steps in a game plan. The Quiver Dance is super helpful, but if Dusclops comes from Nielsen's side of the field, then Haze can kind of like bring those boosts back down to nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. The Goldengo a little bit more immediately pressuring with that Life Orb, whereas the Volcarona, of course, as you said, no spread move for one and also has the Grassy Seed, so more of a defensive option. So yeah, could be handy, but yeah, the lack of spread damage really hurting it against the multiple Follow Me Pokemon on the team. Yeah, the Incineroar on Frederik's team could also have some weight in this matchup. It's not an incredibly physically skewed team, but limiting the damage of knockoff from the opposing Incineroar into all of your ghost types could be important. Yeah, the Rillaboom, like we mentioned, and potentially keyed on. Àlex might be keying in on that as a option to handle the Annihilate later in the game. If you can intimidate that, you're severely limiting its damage options. And then, yeah, the Dragonite being limited in its damage with the Intimidate. It is a multi-scale Dragonite, not the Inner Focus, that would ignore both flinches and the Intimidate. So that's valuable there. And of course, just really solid into Goldengo to knock off the Life Orb, and also with the Assault Vest on it, really easily tank the Make It Rains and Shadow Balls that Àlex could be gunning for earlier in the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, a really good point about the multi-scale on the Dragonite. Incineroar definitely seems like a potential key player for Frederik, depending on whether or not you just have to focus on the Goldengo and Ursaluna as offensive threats, or whether you're going for like a Terra Water Annihilate approach. I am curious if Àlex ever brings Incineroar on his side. As you mentioned, it has the option versus Sinistcha to go for things like Taunt, but it seems like it's really not going to be able to do too much other than knock off the Trick Room setters and taunt them. And so if there's not a Trick Room game plan, I don't think it can really get any value.
Yeah, you're right. I think it'd be extremely high risk to lead the Incineroar, but maybe in the back you might see it as like, if you're expecting Frederik to lean early on the Annihilate Mousehold and then later in the game pivot over towards the Trick Room mode, maybe the Incineroar with the taunt later in the game could be valuable after you've mitigated the risk of the Defiant Annihilate, just completely neutralizing your Incineroar. Yeah, that's definitely going to be a key decision for Àlex, not only the Pokemon that he brings, but also the order in which he brings them, which for a player of his talent, it's definitely something he's thinking of, but something that he's absolutely capable of. I think in 2025, actually, at this tournament, he got a top 8 at LAIC, and the previous year got a top 16 in 2018, top 8. So definitely extremely accomplished at this tournament. Wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, I mean, not particularly surprised to see him at the feature table. He's definitely a player of incredible caliber, and expecting an incredible match here from him as well. But Frederik, no slouch in his own right, I believe, has absolutely been tearing it up in the online circuit as well as the IRL circuit since I first heard about him at the start of Scarlet and Violet. I think he was notably featured for those, Wolfie VGC watchers. I think in one of his videos, like Wolf played him at Worlds and said, okay, this is a player on the caliber that could beat or be a world champion one day. So yeah, absolutely no slouches on the stream right now as we're about to get into the games actually.
Yeah, absolutely. We're getting close. Just talking through a few more things and then we'll be able to jump in. I also just want to mention, I'm so excited to see Nielsen's really unique choices with this Dusclops and the Incineroar coming out. Some like a really interesting team builder here. Facing down, as you mentioned, the lead is so crucial. Àlex is going to go with that Dragonite, getting intimidated because it doesn't have that inner focus ability, and with that Ursaluna Blood Moon with the Assault Vest item.
Yeah, we see Àlex kind of flash his back Pokemon as well, the Incineroar and Goldango also coming. But yeah, I do actually really like this lead as a mid-ground lead. Not sure if it's going to be the Trick Room or the Maushold Annihilate. If you have the Scale Shot on the Dragonite, you can potentially knock out the Maushold in one hit, or at least follow up with the Hyper Voice on the Ursaluna to take out. And as we mentioned, there's no threat of the Rage Fist beat up combination into the Ursaluna, but what we actually got was the Dusclops and Incineroar, which is notable. Frederick potentially leading more into the Trick Room option, as we see the Fake Out come out from the Incineroar to start off that Fake Out Trick Room most likely combination.
Yeah, Frederick does not want to take a Blood Moon from that Ursaluna, so just going to make sure it flinches. Dragonite is going to toss out a Scale Shot, getting really good damage, but nothing game-changing necessarily with that Intimidate drop. Keeping that Incineroar comfortably above half health as Dragonite gets that first defense drop and a speed boost, which probably won't be too helpful if this Dusclops is going for what I think it is, and it is in fact going for the Trick Room. So for 4 more turns, that speed boost is going to be a real detriment to that Dragonite, and I think Frederick's side is going to be moving first pretty consistently.
Yeah, the classic Fake Out Trick Room, one of the oldest plays in VGC. Now at this point, the Dusclops, although not threatening a lot of damage, Nightshade, the only damage it can do into the Dragonite immediately, it is threatening the Will-O-Wisp. Unfortunately, the Annihilate probably not threatening a lot of damage. The Dusclops into the Ursaluna can't hit it outside of Will-O-Wisp, so not a lot of threat there. The speed interaction between this Ursaluna and the Incineroar could be important. It could be a faster Incineroar for faster fake outs, or a slower Incineroar to really just operate in Trick Room, whereas we don't know the speed on this Ursaluna. If Ursaluna moves first and hits a Earth Power or Blood Moon into the Incineroar, could be seeing a quick knockout and a bit of a turnaround in Trick Room, as we see the Dusclops switching out from the battle.
Dusclops popping out, doesn't want to be just sitting around unable to damage the Ursaluna. Gonna toss in the Sinistcha, giving Incineroar a little bit more health, maybe hoping to support this Incineroar if it needs to take a big attack depending on those speed orders. Dragonite is also going to hop out. It had a lot of stat debuffs in this Trick Room, and the Incineroar is going to be able to hit the field. One of those Pokemon we mentioned being really useful if Frederick goes for the Trick Room game plan. Pretty happy to be seeing a Sinistcha facing it down. We do confirm that the Incineroar on Frederick's side is slower, or perhaps there's a speed tag, and the Earth Power is going to go out, but Incineroar comfortably surviving that thanks to that hospitality, but also just leveraging that Assault Vest item really effectively, as Ursaluna on Alex's side now no longer has the Assault Vest. That could really matter if the last Pokemon on Frederick's side is an Ursaluna.
Yeah, Terra Normal Hyper Voice might KO at this point. Blood Moon certainly will, but I do want to comment, it feels like it's pretty close, but the Incineroar might have lived the Earth Power regardless at a little above 50%. So good to know for Frederick. However, I did really like that switch into Incineroar on Alex's side. You're not going to get burned on the Fire type Incineroar, and if we actually saw a U-turn into the Dragonite to chip down its scale or its multi-scale, or the Ursaluna to pivot back into his own Ursaluna, Àlex would have active Fake Out pressure from his Incineroar to prevent an offensive turn to trigger from Frederick. So really heads up play. Didn't actually see that come to pass, but we do see one Ursaluna finally switching out, or rather Àlex is switching out to the Ursaluna in favor of the Goldango, it looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. Goldango hopping onto the field. Sinistcha going for a Terastallization to try to avoid pressure from the knockoff on Alex's Incineroar. It is just going to be a Fake Out to stop that Incineroar from doing any damage, making sure that Goldango has a safe switch in. And it's going to be a Machagacha from Sinistcha. Not likely to have any significant effects, but it does lead a burn on the Goldango, which is going to be some really nice chip, especially combined with that Life Orb item.
Yeah, absolutely. The Goldango, a pretty common Terra type on these type of defensive teams, just getting around the weakness to Incineroar. But yeah, notably, Good as Gold does not prevent secondary status effects from affecting you, so the Machagacha able to get the burn there. Going to be some continual chip. I do like that switch out. Machagacha was a very high threat to that Assault Vest knocked off Ursaluna, so able to take that relatively well, although now you have, of course, taken that burn. You have 2 turns of Trick Room left, with one turn to go for Nasty Plot and the other to go for Protect, with not a lot of great defensive counterplay. You've seen the defensive Terastallization burn on the Sinistcha to survive a knockoff, and now you're just completely susceptible to the Nasty Plot that is just going to come out from this Goldango this turn.
Yeah, a really well-timed Gholdengo switch in with just a little bit of Trick Room left. Frederik is going to have to switch out the Sinistcha, really not wanting to take a Make It Rain into the now Fairy-type Sinistcha. And we are going to see a Terrestrialization from that Gholdengo. Going to go into that Dragon typing, maybe helping a little bit with the threat of damage from that Incineroar's Flare Blitz, and setting it up to have a pretty safe Nasty Plot this turn. And then there's not a whole lot of Trick Room left afterwards. But it is just going to be a knockoff, a good call. Getting rid of that Life Orb on the Gholdengo and taking it pretty low. As a parting shot goes out, we've now confirmed that Alex's Incineroar is likely the faster of the two, so it moves second in Trick Room. A little unfortunate for Alex's side, because probably he really wanted to get that Intimidate, or that attack drop off before the knockoff went out. But Gholdengo still has a good chunk of health left, and is getting up to that +2 special attack to be able to be pretty threatening in just a couple turns once Trick Room wears off.
Yeah, I do think you almost certainly go for Protect on the Gholdengo here to make sure you can actually outlast the Trick Room and take advantage of your Nasty Plot. However, that knockoff on the Incineroar, it did a great amount of damage, don't get me wrong, but I feel like removing the Life Orb is even more critical. Dusclops, incredibly bulky, especially defensive Pokemon. There's actually some likelihood that it could probably live a Shadow Ball from the +2 not Life Orb Gholdengo if it is one of the timid ones, I think. So yeah, Àlex probably aware of this, might be trying to get a little bit more damage on the Dusclops, and these Dusclops, some of them carry Pain Split, this one does not, so no way to heal any damage off outside of the Sinistcha. So yeah, that's something that Àlex is most likely going to try and prioritize, but actually no, don't see a Protect from the Gholdengo unless I'm mistaken. Yeah, interesting.
No Protect from the Gholdengo because it was worried about this haze coming out from the Dusclops, resetting the special attack drop. U-turn is going to go out. That Incineroar, very crucially, because of that Hospitality health boost earlier, just took a Vacuum Wave from the Ursaluna Blood Moon and managed to survive enough to get off this really crucial amount of extra damage for the Gholdengo. Àlex was sort of forced, I think, not to Protect here because he wanted to wind up having the special attack boost, and that haze from the Dusclops means it has to go for Nasty Plot this turn. But because that U-turn was able to go off, this Gholdengo is now so low that it's got a chance to go for maybe one attack now that Trick Room wears off, but Burn is gonna, get very close to knocking out. I think it might still have 2 turns left because that Life Orb is gone, but definitely time is limited for this Gholdengo to make use of its Nasty Plot boosts.
Yeah, absolutely. The Incineroar living the Vacuum Wave, super impactful. The Gholdengo now just has like 1 or 2 turns left, whereas before, if it hadn't taken the U-turn damage, which, by the way, really solid lead from Frederik as well, just, expecting the haze would force another Nasty Plot or an attack and not the Protect, gets a lot of damage and really mitigates the value of this Gholdengo extending longer into the game. But now you do have that +2, you are certainly faster than the Ursaluna on Frederik's side. So Àlex has an option here of either going for Make It Rain to try and maximize damage into the opposing Ursaluna, or go for Shadow Ball to stop the Trick Room for sure. Gonna be a Make It Rain selection from Àlex, just trying to maximize the spread damage from the Gholdengo, but we do see a Protect from the Ursaluna. Could have taken a knockout with Shadow Ball Blood Moon this turn, but actually decided not to.
Being really careful with Trick Room being up, so just gonna protect the Ursaluna, keep it safe from the Make It Rain, as Dusclops takes a little bit less than half, even from a +2 Make It Rain. That Blood Moon likely not going to be enough, actually, to finish off the Dusclops. I suppose it's really well trained, especially defensively. And with the Trick Room going up, Àlex had some options here because the Gholdengo was not going to go down to burn this turn, but with Trick Room set up, I think now the whole team on Alex's side of the field is going to just be fodder for some Hyper Voices here.
Yeah, you almost would have rather the Gholdengo had gone down there, so at least you can get your Fake Out active on the field. Now, Gholdengo guaranteed to go down this turn if it stays on the field, whether it be a Burn or a Hyper Voice. And with the Assault Vest knocked off on the Ursaluna earlier in the battle, Hyper Voice might just knock it out outright. If not, you can probably just go for Nightshade into the Gholdengo, secure that knockout, and then Blood Moon to secure the knockout on Alex's Ursaluna. So yeah, really... oftentimes it's the first Trick Room on more harder offensive Trick Room teams that end up winning the battle, but this second one looks to be where Frederik is looking to take the bulk of the knockouts with that incredibly slow-paced Dusclops and Incineroar Hospitality. Sinistcha just set up to finally get to this really amazing situation offensively.
Very much on the back foot, going to try to pivot in a Fake Out user to try to maybe save the Gholdengo for the end of the game. Going to take a Nightshade, as you called out earlier, Cedric, a pretty safe targeting there. But it is going to be the Blood Moon going into that Ursaluna, making sure that it faints. So that's down to just 3 Pokemon for Àlex, and there's still 3 more turns of Trick Room for Frederik's side of the field. And that was, I think, the one Pokemon that could maybe have survived a Hyper Voice and done a lot of damage back to the Ursaluna. Alex's options are pretty limited, other than maybe the multi-scale on this Dragonite, giving some options here.
Yeah, you have the Dragonite, but we of course have the Will-O-Wisp on the Dusclops, so if you're able to connect that, you further limit the damage output on this Dragonite, and if you go for a Protect, you're not really gaining a lot of ground, you're dodging 1 turn of Will-O-Wisp, but you're probably just getting your Incineroar cleaned up by an Earth Power, and you of course can't bring in the Dragonite and double it back to the Goldango because it'll eat the Will-O-Wisp with the Good of Gold ability, yay, but the earlier burn in effect doing the same thing and just knocking it out. So yeah, really difficult spot. Just incredible play, protecting the Ursaluna, identifying, you know what, I'm a player kind of well known for going on the offensive, and Àlex probably knows this, takes advantage of that expectation, and had a free knockout into the Dusclops and ignored it for the more aggressive play, and really just coming out on top because of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Alex's best option now might just be to hope for a Will-O-Wisp miss here. There's not a ton of other options. We're going to see the Fake Out go into the Ursaluna. I think that's necessary. The Will-O-Wisp does connect, though, with the Dragonite. So unless it's got like 5 hits a Scale Shot with crits on each one, the damage from Alex's side of the field is pretty limited for the whole rest of the game. We are going to see the Scale Shot go out. Oh. That was... Did that do damage? I can't tell. Oh, this poor Dragonite really did not want to be burned here. And with that burn, I think this Ursaluna is just so comfortable to keep tossing out attacks here. And I think Àlex has got to be starting to think about game 2 at this point.
Yeah, to its credit, the Dragonite has gotten 2 5-hit Scale Shots in this game, but despite that, hasn't felt too impactful. Was really more indexed on the Annihilate mode that did not come this game. That Ursaluna, although you're getting some damage into it, as we see Àlex punch in the forfeit, as he probably realizes this, you of course have the Sinistra in the back to heal up any damage you do with the Dragonite in 1 turn with the Hospitality, and then you can just Life Dew in subsequent turns without having to switch in and out for the Hospitality healing. So this Ursaluna at this point effectively cannot target the Incineroar with an Earth Power, and you continue closing the game out slowly but surely from there. So yeah, really incredible performance from Frederik in a game where the Goldango could have gotten out of hand, made a forced the game to a kind of difficult situation for Àlex, and made the right call to convert on game 1 at the 5-0 record.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting the way Frederik used Trick Room, especially that first one. I was expecting like some necessity to like go for the really offensive Ursaluna mode, but I don't think Ursaluna hit the field like only at the very end of the first Trick Room. And then it wasn't like all it needed to do was just sort of sit there for a little bit. It was a really interesting way to use the pressure of the offense to draw out the Goldango, make Àlex use up a lot of his resources. And then that Dusclops was just like perfectly designed for the situation. It had the haze to force the Goldango to not play defensively once it got its first boost up. And then it had just incredible special defense to be able to take the +2 Make It Rain and the Blood Moon like comfortably. That I don't think that was even a roll. It had like a good 15% left. That was, I think, some really good information for Àlex to have, but just exceptional team building from Frederik and a really well executed Trick Room to make use of that Dusclops' strengths.
Yeah, I like that you highlighted that Frederik didn't go so offensive in the first Trick Room, almost had no urgency, although the Trick Room turns were winding out, because he understood, look, at this point, if Ursaluna hadn't gotten on the field earlier in the battle, I probably don't get to use the full turns of Trick Room and actually convert to a win anyway, so I do have to start angling for this second turn. And the Sinistra's Hospitality, allowing the Incineroar to survive attacks, the Dusclops General Bulk, and the U-turn from the Incineroar allowed a perfect game of pivots to actually allow that second game of Trick Room to go up. Yeah, just the value of having so many defensive Pokemon on the team compared to the more offensive hard Trick Room variants is that you do potentially get the second Trick Room up. As we see, we are in game 2, and Frederik did switch it up to the Mousehold and Annihilate lead this time.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. Frederik did such a great job of establishing that if he goes all in on Trick Room, that's going to be really hard for Àlex to stop. And I think that sometimes opens up the potential to then go for a more offensive, just like beat up Rage Fist sort of strategy. We are seeing Àlex sticking with the same lead as before. So does seem to have some pretty good tools into this Annihilate, especially with the Ursaluna being elite here. We're just going to see Mousehold going for a protect, just staying around for, oh, actually just going to be a double protect to scout out what's going on Alex's side of the field, maybe trying to bait out that Blood Moon.
Yeah, only potential punish here would have been a Tailwind on the Dragonite. As we see, Alex's targeting was in fact the Scale Shot into the Mousehold, and my Spanish isn't great. I didn't actually, ID, what was it? Earth Power or Blood Moon?
It hit both. We saw the animation on
Hyper
both
Voice.
protects,
Okay.
so it must have been Hyper Voice.
All right, good to know. But yeah, now you have, on Frederik's side, you were potentially trying to burst out a Terra or something like that, or really just trying to scout out if there's a switch, but doesn't get it, so kind of back to a null turn, but with the Protect resources wasted. At this point, you are the fastest Pokemon on the field with the Mousehold, so you could go for a Beat Up and Rage Fist to most likely not knock out the Dragonite through the multiscale, but do a chunk of damage. You could also go for a beat up bulk up, although at that point you're kind of risking taking a lot of damage. This Annihilate is a leftovers one, so none of the immediate bulk of the Citrus Fairy, but yeah, we do see the beat up coming out from the Mousehold. 1, 2, 3, 4 counts of the Rage Fist stack. It's now a 250 base power move, but it's actually an extremely slow Annihilate as we see the Scale Shot on the Dragonite outspeed and start to stack those Rage Fists even higher. Oh man, if a Rage Fist comes out into the Dragonite, that's a knockout for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And with the 5 hits, this Rage Fist has been affected 9 times. Whatever the max of Rage Fist is, it's at that now. But it is just going to be a Drain Punch actually coming out, really prioritizing getting some healing back to handle a potential Hyper Voice. We're going to have to see if that pays out. But it is just going to be the Blood Moon, saved for the second turn, going into that Annihilate. But wow, this Annihilate leveraging that Friend Guard so effectively, and I assume that the Source Luna must be pretty bulky from Alex's side. I was expecting something pretty close to a KO, but this Annihilate is comfortably at about a third of its health, and if there's a Sinistra in the back, that means it's comfortably at about 2/3 of its health.
Yeah, just incredible bulk on that Annihilate, and boosted by the very rare ability Friend Guard, which boosts the partner's defensive ability to tank hits by, I don't actually know if it's 25 or 33%, but a hefty noticeable amount as we see the Annihilate hanging on with a bit of health. As you mentioned, Sinistra in the back, definitely a great switch in here to heal up the Annihilate if you want to, or you could go straight on the offensive. Assume that you can tank the Scale Shot with the healing from the Sinistra in the back and go for a Rage Fist, but no, we actually do just see the Follow Me redirecting any attention away from the Annihilate this turn.
Alex gonna just go for a Tailwind, try to set up the Ursaluna to have one more attack, and it is gonna get the Hyper Voice off, but Annihilate was able to survive even still, and now that Rage Fist boosted by 11 attacks is going to just KO that Dragonite through multiscale. But I think now with Tailwind up, it's going to be really hard for this Annihilate to be able to last too much longer. You can pivot the Sinistra in, but you do lose the 25% bulk boost from Friend Guard, and with Goldengo hitting the field as well, Alex is definitely threatening some nice KOs. That was a really well-timed Tailwind, I think.
Yeah, at this point, really solid Tailwind. With the damage you already had on the Annihilate, if you assume that it's going to be a Follow Me, 2 Hyper Voices takes the knockout. And if it's not a Follow Me, the Mousehold isn't really doing that much. It doesn't have Super Fang, it has Taunt, Protect, Follow Me, so not threatening a whole lot of damage to any of your Pokemon. But now you're actually playing a bit of a dangerous game if you're Àlex. If you get a little bit greedy here, you could index into Trick Room in the back and go for a nasty plot to try and set up to stop Trick Room from going up later in the game. Or you could go for, basically you always go for Hyper Voice here to avoid the Follow Me from allowing the Annihilate to survive the turn. But if you go for Nasty Plot and the Sinistra comes in like we do potentially see here, you'd actually potentially be able to knock out the Goldengo Terra or not with your 350 base power Rage Fist on the Annihilate, as we do, see the Sinistra switch in and heal up that Annihilate.
Annihilate, just gonna go for a Protect here, try to get some leftovers recovery on top of the Sinistra's boost. And that Goldengo did actually go for a Shadow Ball, trying to catch this Annihilate not protecting here. So didn't go for that Nasty Plot. Hyper Voice gonna come out, but not nearly as much damage as Frederik might have taken if this turn had played out differently. I think that's about perfect for Frederik in terms of recovering this Annihilate back up to about half health. You even got an option to switch Mousehold back in now to get more Friend Guard effect and prevent the Shadow Balls in future.
Yeah, at this point, this is just the kind of game that Frederik plays where you could take a big lead if you go for a bit more offensive of an option, but a lot of the times he punishes that. And this time, in this set, he's actually played pretty defensively with his Pokemon, which Àlex might not have been expecting. At this point, though, you could go for a Make It Rain Hyper Voice, and it'd be a little tight if you switch in the Friend Guard and the Annihilate goes for a Terastallization to the Water type, whether the Annihilate can survive that, or you can just go for Shadow Ball and the Sinistra and Blood Moon into the Annihilate, which might seem safe, but if the Sinistra goes for the Terastallization to the Fairy type, at that point, it would redirect both attacks most likely and allow the Annihilate to take a hefty knockout with the Rage Fist. But nope, not going to see that. Another interesting switch. We see the Mouse Hold come onto the field with the Sinistra at the same time as it switches out.
Yeah, I really like the Mouse Hold switch in here. The Annihilate gets to keep those Rage Fist boosts, even if it's not on the field right now, and there wasn't really a safe way with it burning Protect for it to stay on the field. But Mouse Hold might be able to come in on a Shadow Ball here, and it looks like that's exactly what's happening. It came in on an immunity, that Shadow Ball attack, and Blood Moon going to hit into that Mouse Hold though. So that Mouse Hold is down for the count. Àlex really wanting to force some sort of KO on this turn, and also cover the Terastallization options. So that's one Pokemon down, but now there's Fake Out pressure on the board as Annihilate hits the field again, and this Annihilate, also I think we're on the last turn of Tailwind. There's just a little bit more that Frederik has to stall before this Annihilate becomes really, really threatening pretty quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you highlighted that the Tailwind is going to go down, because at that point the Ursaluna becomes a lot less severe of a threat. Also really notable to note that Annihilate is, although in some sense a setup sweeper in that you're trying to set up Rage Fist, it's one of the rare setup Pokemon that the Rage Fist stack does not reset when you switch out. The setup doesn't end when you switch out. So this Annihilate is still maxed out on its Rage Fist boost, and there's a good chance it knocks out the Gholdengo even if it does go for a Terastallization. Going to be very close. And we saw earlier the Fake Out damage into that. Oh goodness, we see the Incineroar switch out from Alex's side. Really risky play, expecting, yeah, this Defiance is just going to get activated, and the Rage Fist is going to do a whole lot of damage if it comes out.
Yeah, this Annihilate is now more set up than when it left the field before. It has the attack boost. It still has the Rage Fist boost as well. Àlex is going to get Fake Out pressure out of this, which might pay off pretty well, but definitely some risk here as Gholdengo goes for a Terastallization, trying to not be weak to anything that Incineroar can do, maybe hoping for a defensive play from the Annihilate on the last turn of Tailwind. We are going to see, though, the Terastallization coming out, presumably onto that Annihilate, and so that means that Àlex has timed this Incineroar pretty well, where if it survives this turn, if Annihilate doesn't take too many KOs this turn, there's now an option to get some Fake Out pressure, which might be useful. Fake Out just going into the Incineroar on Alex's side of the field. Nasty Plot going out, but there's a pretty crucial question here of whether there's going to be a Rage Fist going into that Gholdengo right now, and there is. So that's a +1, 350 base power Ghost type attack. You can Terastallize Gholdengo, but you can't survive that attack. No one can. And now it's Jazz, Ursaluna, and Incineroar. You've got Fake Out pressure, but I don't think that's nearly enough to be able to bring this game back around as Annihilate continues to heal. It's now at half health, and there's a Sinistra in the back, so it has even more healing available to it.
Yeah, I sort of see what Àlex was going for there. With the Annihilate entering the field on the last turn of Tailwind with Protect active, on some level you're expecting that kind of defensive play. So he's thinking, all right, I'm going to get my Incineroar in, going to set up my Nasty Plot Gholdengo, Terastallize so the knockoff doesn't do a lot of damage, and on the next turn, because we saw that my Dragonite is faster, my Gholdengo most likely is as well. With the +2 Shadow Ball, even if Sinistra comes in with the Hospitality, I take a knockout next turn with Shadow Ball, and my Terra Dragon Gholdengo at this point cleans up the game. But yeah, Frederik one step ahead. It felt like every consequential read of the turn of the game he was, and yeah, just proving once again how absolutely rock solid of a player he is at reading his opponents. But the positional play was also extremely impressive in that game as well.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly how to say this, but I feel like Àlex every turn made like what is a good classical VGC play, like identifying where there was pressure, being able to like sort of stall out the Trick Room in the first game, being able to sort of take advantage of expecting an opponent to stall out Tailwind in the second. As you mentioned, the Gholdengo probably faster than the Annihilate, but Frederik just seems to have built a team that lets him really leverage these moments of having like really impactful predictions on the entire game. And so just like has really been sort of like, I think, making use of those inclinations that a top player like Àlex has of like, here is when I play defensively, here is when I position, and really exploiting those in a really effective way to get KOs at exactly the right time. Like there's so much defensive potential from Frederik's team and so much explosive offensive potential, and it was just perfectly timed which was coming out on each turn.